Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast. Hello, everyone. It's Hugh Ballou. We're back for the Nonprofit Exchange. Each episode is exciting. I can't believe in 7.5 years that I've met so many different people. And people have different stories. We've even had people with the same topic who've had a different message. So it's incredible. We've never had a guest that's talked about live events, virtual events. They're live, they're not in person, but everybody there is living. So today I have brought a friend that I met years ago, and we just recently got reconnected. And Ella Glasgow is an expert in rocking you didn't say that, I said that, rocking your virtual events. So Ella, welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, and tell people a little bit about who you are.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. I was so glad when we connected again. That was a couple of months ago now, but I'm so glad that we found each other again and that we can have these conversations. And yes, I am the founder and executive producer for my company, Beyond Virtual Events. And we produce virtual events for companies and organizations, really helping them to get through the event without pulling their hair out. I like to prescribe what I like to call the hair regrowth plan for the event organizers. Because we're going to take care of everything for you so that really you can do nothing but give me the answers that I need so we can run the event for you, and you can sit back and relax and do what you do best. And that may be just speaking at the event. That may be just sitting down and watching what's going on stage. Whatever that means for you, we're going to make it so that it's completely seamless and easy for you while we handle everything when it comes to putting that virtual event together.
So what got your interest? What ignited your passion about doing this kind of work?
Well, it's interesting that this happened when it did, because I've been passionate about production since I was quite young. And in fact, I've been in productions around the world for over 20 years. So in 2005, when I originally, I know, right? All that time ago, in 2005, when I originally wrote my business plan after having graduated college a few years before, I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life and with what I was doing at that time. I was singing exclusively, and I realized that I wanted to help people in a different way. And I wrote a business plan that said that I have a production and coaching company. And the production was the biggest thing, but it took me a lot of years to understand how to make a production company happen, because it ain't cheap to start a production company. And I didn't understand how to raise the money to do it. And even when I did finally learn how to raise the money, and that's around the time that I met you, Hugh, in 2015, I got scared because it was a lot of money that I needed to raise. It was $250,000 that I was going to need to raise to have a production company. And so I still didn't do it. And then came Corona. And Corona came to me and said, Ella, what if I told you you could do that production company for free? And I said, what, Corona? Tell me. What you talking about? And so we did. Well, it wasn't completely free. Obviously, there's stuff that I have to pay for, but.
I remember when Corona used to just be a beer.
A tasty beer with a lime.
So you probably attended some pretty bad events over the years, huh?
I have attended some events that had left little to be desired, and but I wasn't the one running the show. And I refuse on my watch as many times as I can, if I can run the show, to make sure that those events that we do produce are really off the chain. So, and they leave much their audiences, the events that we've run over the past year, and we've done about 28 of them at this point. We're working with a client that we worked with last year. We're doing a repeat event for her, and their audience is still talking about the event that we did last year. They're excited about it happening again this year.
Wow. Wow. Now, you may or may not know that I served megachurches for 40 years,
I
and
did
I produced a lot of events. And they got better as I got older and smarter about it. And some of those were concerts. And now I produce events for nonprofit leaders. And you're right. There's a lot of facets to it. So part of what we need to learn. Now, one thing is I know as a conductor is it takes a lot more time to prepare a meeting than it takes to run the meeting. Only if you want to accomplish the right things in that meeting. You have important people, you have important work. Well, let's prepare for it. Well, I find that a lot of people who do events aren't aware, like the timing. They start running behind schedule. They don't know what to do about it, and things get out of hand. There's so many factors like that. And how do you move people from one place to the other? How do you build in just the time, the transition time between elements? There's so many things about an event that if one of them goes wrong, it's kind of a daisy chain. And one thing really might not be a good experience for someone, might turn them off on the whole event. So you attended events before, you got interested in events, you probably saw some that you said, you know, this could be better. And so when did you start your enterprise? Was it 2015 or before that?
So I started my actual company. So my overall company is called Becoming Entertainment. And that I officially started probably in 2005. It wasn't actually supposed to be called Becoming Entertainment. It was supposed to be called Becoming because I'm all about people becoming greater than what they are right now. And becoming was already taken. So so it became Becoming Entertainment. But that happened in 2005. And like I said, I was a part of productions for all of this time, all of these years before 2020. But I learned so much along the way being a part of productions and also being willing to ask a lot of questions. I would be the one that was in the sound booth with our sound engineers for shows and asking about the buttons. I was the one going into the recording studios when I lived in Nashville to ask what was going on with that big fat board. You know, I love production. I think it is a wonderful thing. And as many people as I can help to have an up-leveled experience with what I've learned over my last 20 plus years of being in this industry, I want to be able to help as many people as possible.
That's a great spirit. That's a great spirit. So let's talk about so I'm going to do an event. Let's just kind of do a scenario here. I'm going to do an event and I'm going to say, okay, I'm just going to schedule it on this date, and I'll send out a few emails, and people are going to clamor because they're charmed by me. And so I schedule an event and I send out the email, and a week before I've got one person registered. And I really haven't thought through the venue. I haven't thought through the meals, haven't thought through the breaks, haven't thought through refreshments, haven't thought through handouts, haven't thought through a lot of the moving parts, haven't thought through the shopping cart, how people are going to pay and then get their receipt for it. So there's a number of things that you know, maybe I should put this off and do it another time, so that I'm suddenly aware that I need to have a professional. So I want to ask you about why, and there's multiple kinds of events. So I want to talk about events in general, and then let's do a subset, because nonprofits are now doing fundraising events online when they used to do them in person. And I think we've passed a point. Let's get this out in the open here. We've passed a point where we're going to do only live events again. I think we're past the point that we've really generated another kind of energy. And many of the groups I'm in are all over the world. So, you know, coming together is a big deal, but we can do weekly all over the world on Zoom, and it's a lot more efficient than trying to fly somewhere. So let's talk about that. There's the future of virtual events is here, and it's going to stay, right?
It's true. Virtual events were here before COVID, and I was trying to get people on the Zoom train years and years before COVID. Now I don't have to fight as hard, but virtual events are going to be here long after COVID is over. And it's not because of anything other than the fact that we have new expectations of what we expect virtual events to look like and what we expect them to be. Before, we didn't know, or rather, we didn't question what was being fed to us as a virtual event. We accepted whatever, hiccups were happening. We accepted what things were looking like. And then COVID came along and forced a majority of people to have to be online, which meant that people who were just kind of coasting along with what they were doing with their events really had to up level their game. And it also means that because now people have gotten a taste of being able to, what you just said, be able to reach people around the globe and not have to buy a plane ticket, not have to get a hotel room, not have to go pay for catering, unless of course they get a swag box, which that's another conversation altogether. But there are lots of things that don't have to happen anymore. And you are able to reach a much wider audience by doing your event online and have a much greater ability to be able to raise more funds in terms of nonprofits. You're able to reach a wider audience to get more funds raised to be able to help that bottom line, to get the people help that you're trying to help because you're doing a virtual event.
Yes, yes. Now, I will say there's an energy. You and I met at a conference in Orlando, and there's the energy of the person to person that you cannot duplicate on Zoom. But that event happened 5 times a year. And when now it could happen a lot, and they're doing it more frequently because people don't have to travel and they can charge less and people are able to connect. So there is a difference. But there doesn't need to be as much difference as there had been. So let's talk about why would somebody, so virtual events are here to stay and they're getting better and they're going to be more effective and people are going to be able to do more of them because there's lower cost. Now, events for nonprofits are a good thing for building relationships, for giving out information about what we do, for giving people updates on the powerful work that we do. Mostly we do events like a gala to raise money and people know they're there and they know they're going to do a donation. But galas they were on rocky footing before the pandemic because people were paying a lot of money for them and there was a lot of time and energy went into, and sometimes not a very good return on investment. So talk about why I would need to call Ella, a professional, to help me run my event. And would you run it or would you teach me how to run it?
One or both. It depends on really what your needs are. We do teach people how to run virtual events on their own, but there are just some people who really, they say to me, I don't care, you teach me to the moon and back, I don't want to do it. You're going to run it for me. And so for those people, we do that. We will run the entire event for them. And when it comes to a nonprofit, you're right. There are some costs that are less than running it in person. But I would caution you to just understand it doesn't always mean that it's always much, much less. It really is a shifting of where those costs are going as opposed to it being so much less. So for instance, your venue that you're getting is now online. That is not free. And if you get a swag box, that's where your food cost is now going. If that swag box, regardless of whether or not it has food. So all of those things just kind of shift position. But the reason why you have someone like me to help you with that is to help you understand and navigate these new waters. This is new for a lot of people, for a majority of people. This is brand new. And with someone like me behind the helm, and not just me, it's myself and my entire team. We have also a fundraiser on our team. We're going to help you raise as much money as possible so that you can get everything that you need for your event. And we're going to be holding your hand the entire way. making sure that you understand which T's and I's need to be dotted and crossed so that you don't have an event that you just put out a link for the week before and are disappointed because no one shows up. There's a process that has to be gone through to make sure that people understand and know what they're getting into whenever they are coming to your event, what's in it for them, basically. It's that basic principle, right? What's in it for them? And we still want to make sure that we're giving them a reason to be there. And with us at the helm helping you, we'll help you to understand what those reasons are so that you have the most successful event possible.
Sweet, sweet. So help me define what are some bad practices that end up in events that are, shall we say, less than effective? And then how do we contrast those with good practices?
Bad practices that I've seen at events is one that we've just talked about, in that you wait until the last minute and expect everything to go well. That's a bad practice. Events, virtual or in person, have to be planned, and you have to be planned to the nines to expect a great return on your time investment and your financial investment, to be quite frank. The other bad practice that I see is people not having a tech run and expecting things to just run smoothly, and then wonder, why did things fall apart? Well, all of this could have been avoided if you would have simply had one or two tech runs to find out where all of the kinks were before you had the event. Because the thing is that whether it's live or in person, unlike the shows that I was in, you only get one time to do this show. The shows that I was in, I had months, weeks, whole months to live into my part. And if I messed up the first night of show, well, I'll fix it tomorrow night. Your event, you get one shot. And if you jack it up on that first shot, well, oh well, it's done. So don't skip the tech runs, and don't get mad at me when I tell you we're going to have it, because it's non-negotiable.
You want it to go right, you got to rehearse it. Oh my, are we on the same page? Well, you just don't wing it. And never mind, I won't go there. So let me share a quick story with you. I'm going to change my background. So people listening on the podcast, I've put a background of me conducting an orchestra. And so this event was in 2018, December. And of course, months earlier, the choir in the background, they had 100 singers. They rehearsed all their parts. There's a children's choir that's going to pop up behind me on the riser boom. We had a black gospel choir come in that just rocked the house. We had soloists. So we got all these moving parts. And so we had it scheduled the opening week of this theater. It was a centuries-old theater that had been renovated. In the first week they were open. So we were scheduled to do a dress rehearsal in the afternoon and come back and do a concert in the evening on a Sunday. We had 12 inches of snow that day. We weren't going anywhere. The only time that we had done a tech rehearsal on Friday night, no orchestra, just all the singers and all the tech people and the soloists, and we walked through the children's choir. And we walked through those parts. So we knew all that, and we sang in place. We had the mics adjusted. Well, it snowed. So the only spot we had was the following Sunday after another concert. We had no dress rehearsal. But because we'd had the tech rehearsal, all of the major plays, so the orchestra sat in place, and we'd had rehearsals. So they played the music. So the orchestra sat in place, and we'd had choir rehearsals with the orchestra, not on this venue. But we'd done all of the moving parts, and we'd done the tech rehearsal. But because we did what you said, had the tech rehearsal, we could do the performance. So that was and if we hadn't done it then, we could not have done it at all. And so for a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of heartfelt energy would have gone to waste. So having the rehearsal means you can pull it off. I taught middle school part of my life. I did the lesson plan. I knew what I was going to teach, because it never went like you planned it, but you could pull it off because you did that rehearsal. Exactly. So rehearsal is essential to what you're doing. So thank you for letting me tell a little personal story, but that's a testimony, and you got to do the tech rehearsal.
You have to. It's absolutely key. And, at first when we started doing this, because the majority of people that we work with are not show people, And so I didn't want them to be scared by what's going to be happening at tech rehearsal. And I have since changed my mind. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about something that you know about very, very well, Hugh, what actually happens at tech rehearsal. Everything and all hell breaks loose at the tech run. And I used to just kind of ease people into it and not let them know that, it was going to be crazy because they were already nervous about it being online, right? So I didn't want to add any more to their stress. But I have since told them now, started telling our clients, look, we're going to do the tech run. It's going to be horrible. In fact, I expect it to be horrible. And I pray that it is, because in the production world, when you've got a horrible tech run, then opening night's going to be amazing. And we get scared in the production world when the tech run is not fabulous, when the tech run is fabulous. We get scared that everything's going to break loose on the day of the show.
People get kind of cocky. Oh, it's no big deal, but it kind of keeps you on your toes. Now, it's got to be good enough so that you're confident that you can pull it off.
Yeah.
That's where it's just sort of the shakedown you're saying.
Yeah, it is a shakedown. It's not when I say that everything's going to break, I mean to the point that we know how to fix it so that when we get to the showtime, we've already worked out the horrible kinks, so that if and when things do happen during the actual event, it's nothing that your audience recognizes. And in fact, I just was looking at a debrief of one of our clients a few months ago and just reviewing what they had said. And one of the people who had been on stage, she said, you know what you're talking about, there was an issue that happened with one of the speakers. And she said, it's interesting that you say that because I had no clue that there was anything going on. And she said, I guess that's the beauty of having you run things for us, because I just was able to just do what I needed to do and have no clue as an audience member that anything was happening at all. And that's the beauty of having number one, gone through tech rehearsals, and number two, having us run things so that if anything's happening on stage, that you as an audience member, and even sometimes the client, doesn't realize that chaos may have happened because we are cleaning it up immediately.
That is so key. And I've been to national conferences, and I know I can see behind the scenes there's an event person running it, and they're the ones scurrying around making sure things happen. Now, they're only scurrying around because something went wrong, because they've done their work, and normally they're calm and they're just hanging out in case something goes wrong. But if it does, you don't have to come off a stage to say, oh, we got to fix something. No, you just keep going. And we don't want to distract our audience. So let's talk about this this area of fundraising. Now, we didn't do it much before the COVID, the pandemic, but we've been forced into having to do it. So what level of success is happening in the fundraising for nonprofits? And is there a bright road ahead for more of that?
There is a bright road ahead. Nonprofits are seeing a lot more success in raising funds online, especially because of something that we talked about before, them being able to have a farther reach. Because now that they're online, they don't have to rely on just the people in their town. In fact, we're working with a nonprofit right now who is so excited about the fact that they have had for years people outside of their state, outside of their city, that have wanted to be a part of the event, but they have not been able to have them come because they live states and states away, and they're not going to drive there just for a night, as much as they love the organization. But now, because it's virtual, everybody in the nation can come.
Everybody in the world can come.
Everybody in the world literally can come.
So how do we make that emotional connection, that heartfelt connection when we're not in person? That's so important to the fundraising perspective.
That really has a lot to do with who you're putting on stage and making sure that they understand how to make that connection through the camera. So the question that you're asking is key to understand. I want you to think about all of the YouTube videos that you've watched, all of the shows, television shows that you love, that you sat there on the couch with a tear in your eye from the action that was happening on the screen. And they weren't even talking to you. That was all pre-recorded. That's exactly what we're doing for virtual events, except we're live. And when you have somebody on the stage that understands how to take that emotion through the screen, you will be touched, sometimes even on a deeper level than you would be in person. And you are more willing to give when you are there virtually because you haven't spent the money to go buy that plane ticket or get that hotel room or whatever it is that you've had to do in the past. Now you've got a little more in your pocket to be able to give. I liken it to the virtual events that we're doing for nonprofits. I liken it to Jerry Lewis Telethon. Jerry Lewis Telethons did for years virtual events. The only difference was it was on television and he wasn't talking. I mean, he was talking to you, but you couldn't be on the screen with him at that time. But you've been giving online for years. Every single time PBS runs their fundraising and you pay $200 for that book, you have been a part of a virtual event.
Never thought of that. You're so right. You know, they do these virtual fundraisers, public radio, public television, as a regular course, and people respond to that.
Every day. Every day.
Wow. So events are here to stay. So here's a question that's not in the script here. Where do we find on YouTube places where you're singing?
Rogue, you've gone rogue.
That's right. That's right.
If you just look up Ella Glasgow, you'll find videos of me singing.
Love it. I love it. I don't think I knew that before.
In fact, I just did my second virtual performance last week, and I did some new things with it. I waited a while before I decided to get on the virtual scene when it came to performing, because I wanted things to be above level that they have been in the past. So I'm kind of excited that I've actually finally ventured into that world for myself. And not just for everybody, all my clients.
Well, so you've gotten there. So I'm going to do a sponsor moment. We're able to do programs because we have sponsors. And so we distribute a magazine called Performance 360 magazine, and it comes out with stories for leaders. I have to remember where the camera is. Here's our friend Frank Chenkowitz, the motorcycle policeman, who started a nonprofit. And so we provide value for leaders in many ways, and the nonprofit exchange is one of them. But our sponsor for the magazine is WordSprint. Here's their ad here. WordSprint, it's like the word fast. WordSprint.com is where you find them. It's a mail house. So if you want to stay, you have this event, and then people get on your list and they give you money. You want to stay in touch with them. You want to make sure they know what's happened with that money. So we set up a campaign where they get something in their hand, a postcard, a letter, something like the magazine. They get a printed piece in their hand. And if you think print has died, just check your mailbox every day and see what's coming through. There's a lot of people sending stuff in the mail. So getting mail directly to somebody's hand, and if it's content, they're going to keep it. So WordSprint can help you create a program that's going to help you, top of mind marketing. You stay in touch with your tribe. You tell them what's happening. Here's the value you've helped create. Here's the value. Here's an update. Finally, when you get to the end of the year and you do your fundraiser, they're ready to give to you because you've kept them informed.
Exactly.
Now, if you got a product or service and you want to break into the nonprofit market, it's the third largest industry in the United States, 1.6 million nonprofits. They raise and spend $1.6 trillion annually. So that's a pretty sizable market, and we can connect you to that market. So if you got a product or service, email Hugh at HughBallou, that's my name, HughBallou.com, and we will talk. So right now, so go to wordsprint.com. They're our provider for this service, but they can provide for you a program that's awesome and will help you raise the bar every year on the amount of donors you retain and the amount they're donating, because you've continued to build the relationship. So Ella, let's talk about this relationship piece in virtual events. How, sometimes there's all kind of funny pictures online about people that didn't realize they were on camera in a Zoom meeting and they're doing things they shouldn't have been doing. Didn't realize the camera was on while they were doing it. So what's the secret to engagement? People are watching and they want to turn off their cameras, which really tells me they're not paying attention. But what's your secret for helping spark that engagement and maintain that engagement?
Well, depending on our client, there are all kinds of things that we do. And one of the things that you just talked about with being engaged with your audience before you have an event is really, really key. And we set up some expectations for our events before the event happens so that when the audience gets there, they're more inclined to keep their camera on because they know that we want that energy. We also talk to them. I often say to people, you wouldn't put a bag over your head when you walk into an in-person event, because that's essentially what you're doing when you turn your camera off. Now, you may want to be the person in the back of the room, and there are ways that you can do that to be the person in the back of the room in the Zoom meeting. I'm just telling you right now. So if you don't want to be on the front screen, just don't show up early. Whoever gets in first is going to be be the first person seen on the screen. So that's a little Zoom tidbit for you. But for virtual events, we just kind of assume that we can just kind of watch vicariously. And the thing is that depending on who's running your event, if you're doing an event with us, we want you to be a real audience. If you were at an in-person event, you would be there fully engaged and you would be there fully vested in what was going on the stage. And we want you to be that same audience member virtually. The only difference now is that you get to be in your comfortable couch. You don't have to be in an annoying conference seat. So you should be more excited.
And they don't see what you're eating or drinking. The outline is, since you said we entertain questions later in the hour, but I think I'm going to mix it up a little bit today. And we've got some folks that I bet would have some interesting observations and questions. Is it okay if I interrupt this flow and invite some questions now?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Just kind of mix things up. You said we could have fun.
Yes, always.
We've got people from all over here, even Texas. So I see Bob Hopkins from Dallas, Texas, author of Philanthropy Misunderstood and producer of the Youth with Cinevision Youth and Philanthropy Conference. So Bob, do you have a comment or question for Ella today?
Yeah, nice to hear you, Ella. I like your laugh. You obviously have a contagious one. I can't wait to hear you sing on YouTube. I guess it's go to YouTube I'm going to go to when you hang up here. Yeah, I am doing everything, of course, on Zoom here. On Zoom. I'm talking to Hugh a couple of times a week. And my challenge is I teach college, and so we're doing Zoom. That is a virtual event. It has to be a virtual event. It has to be exciting. It has to be, so that students are going to stay in the space that they're in instead of wandering around and doing other things in their house and with their kids and with their dogs and constantly and all those kinds of things. Is Zoom the best format to reach people, do you think, or is there another one that's better?
So in my personal opinion, when it comes to real face-to-face in-person engagement, Zoom is honestly the best platform to make that happen. The other platforms, and there are over 200 virtual event platforms, the other platforms are still making it so that it's really more of that webinar format where basically I'm just talking at you, and the only other form of engagement that I have is maybe a poll and possibly a chat. And if you really want to get the whole sense involved, then Zoom really is the place to make that happen, in my personal opinion.
Do you think it's the safest? And I say that because my college says that Zoom is not safe.
So let's dive into that question, if that's all right, Hugh.
Absolutely, yes.
What specifically is unsafe about Zoom from their perspective?
That people can come in and they can get in and do all kinds of crazy things in front of the audience, and they're worried about our children, even though they're over 18 years old. They're worried about our children, people coming in and doing things is what they're saying.
So there seems to be a little bit of a misconception with how that gets bypassed. The thing is if you're sending out links to everybody and you're physically giving them the link, anybody can get there. Whether that is a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or a Facebook meeting or any other meeting. If you've given the link and you put it out in the public for everybody to see, in fact, I just saw this the other day. Someone posted on Facebook their Zoom meeting ID and the Zoom meeting password. This I'm seeing happen all the time. You are setting yourself up for disaster when you post those things publicly. So the safety is not Zoom's fault. I'm sorry to say. It's whoever's operating the Zoom account.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that information because I'm telling my college that Zoom is safe, and I'm trying to bypass not having to go to something like Teams or something else where there's only 4 or 5 people that we're able to even see on screen, and we can't see our whole classes. So think that you're doing that. Okay. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your conversation, and I know that I need to do better. I'm thinking out of the box here. I'm going to be doing some virtual events coming up here soon. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. And should I need any should I need any help, I'm going to call the professional, and that's you.
Good. I will look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Jeffrey, you want to weigh in while you're here? Mr. Rash had a question, but he had to go to a meeting. So Jeffrey, you want to make a comment or question?
Sure. Yeah. Ella, it's great to hear your voice and talking, and we'll get to the singing later. I really like the. I really think that we are going to be going to a balance of in-person / virtual events, and I really like the way you positioned that, because we've got an opportunity here to make, as the saying goes, the old adage of lemonade out of lemons. And what it's done is it's kind of set us up to be able to do things that, like you said, we were doing these in different ways before. We just weren't looking at them that way. And now we're finding a way to integrate these two things together. And I think that point is one that needs to be really well taken by folks, is that this is a time that we can make some really positive changes and not go back to the way that we used to do things because we thought that was the best way to do them. And now some people even think that still was the best way to do them. And guess what? It's not. And so we've got an opportunity here to really do some cool things. And I'm glad you mentioned that Zoom is the best, because I think it is too. And I know some people that have to go back and forth between Zoom and Teams for different things. They like Zoom a lot better for that particular type of thing. And so I was really glad that you gave them a plug, because I think it is good. I think it's safe. I have a friend of mine who runs a healthcare organization, and they use the high-end HIPAA compliant version of Zoom. And, that's about as intense as it has to be, and it works great for them. So I'm glad you covered that. So folks kind of feel a little more comfortable knowing that they're investing in something that is secure and stable and is really the best platform for what they're trying to do. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Hugh, is it okay if I make a comment off of what Jeffrey just was speaking about?
Absolutely.
Jeff, what you were saying about, the people making the decision to make things safe for them by choosing the higher end of Zoom. And it doesn't always have to be the higher end. Now, when we work with our clients, you're using our Zoom account, and we do have the highest end of the Zoom account for all of those reasons. But the other end of that spectrum is that, really is a matter of doing your due diligence in the things that I talked about before, and really understanding that it's not just the Zoom platform, and there are other platforms. Whenever we're working with our clients, we're looking at what is the best platform for them. Zoom just happens to be the one that we lean toward the most because of the ability to have that face-to-face engagement, but it may not always be Zoom as the answer for whatever that event happens to be. But whatever it is that you're trying to do, make sure that you understand the pieces of that platform. If you're not going to have a professional come and help you with it, then get in there and understand the nuances of what you can do, and the simple things, like I said, of not sending out your link to absolutely everyone. There are other ways to get people into the meeting besides sending them the actual link for them to just share with anybody.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. So
sure.
he's in Virginia and Bob is in Dallas, Texas. They're both certified fundraising executives who've retired and are volunteering in various places, but I'm sure they've seen lots of, let's say, less than satisfactory funding opportunities. So I don't know, is part of your game helping people improve their presentation skills and their image on screen?
Yeah, so when we're working with all of our clients, when we're putting an event together for you, I'm really coming at it from the angle of the highest level in-person events that you're thinking of. So we want to make sure that as a speaker, that you feel really comfortable on stage, because at the end of the day, as much as everybody has been on Zoom, it still does not surprise me. Everybody has not been trained to be on camera. It is a different beast. And just because you've been on Zoom with other people's meetings doesn't mean that you've up-leveled your game to the place where it honestly needs to be for a virtual event, and for people to really take you as the authority that you should be when you're the one speaking on stage for a virtual event. So with all of the speakers, we work with them to make sure that their background looks good. And it doesn't always have to be a green screen. And if anybody has heard me say anywhere else before, I'm not always a fan of the green screen because not everybody knows how to use it properly. It takes a lot to put a green screen on properly. And sometimes it might just be better to just pick up the papers in your background. Doesn't have to be that difficult. We work with them on really helping them to understand how to shine through the camera. And that is something that's new, that we're adding to the roster of services this year. It's something that I've done for years in the past, helping people to really shine on stage. But now we're being more proactive with the speakers that we have for our virtual events and taking that a step further beyond the training that we were already giving them, and not just expecting that because they were either world-class speakers in person or they've been on Zoom forever, does that mean that they really know how to make this work online?
Yeah. There's an energy in being in person that you can relate to the people. And I used to always say, when I first spoke at CO Space, there were 1,000 people in the audience. And the larger the audience, the faster they'll turn on you. So you gotta pay attention to what's going on. And I think even on Zoom, I think it's important for us to make eye contact with people and see who's there. They don't know you're looking at them, but just to make eye contact. But your eyes, that's hard to do. I try to have my camera right there so I can still see the screen. I see people doing this when they're looking at the screen and not at the camera, which to me is an obvious change. Or I see people that are, they're from here up, and the rest of them's below the camera, and they're talking to you. It's like, come on, you had your head cut off,
Yeah. I like to call those the peepers, and I tell people, don't be a peeper.
In photography composition, that's a border merger. You've merged with a border. And there's a background merger where you got something coming out of your head in the background, which is very distracting. And people have an unmade bed in the background, or the papers you talk about. So and how about lighting? You have a very nice lighting on you, and you have a very clear, clean background.
Thank you. Yeah, all of those things that you're talking about are incredibly important. And before I get to my lighting, those things are important because regardless of whether or not your audience says something to you about what you're looking like on camera, when those little things, seemingly little things, are off, your audience subconsciously feels uncomfortable. And it's not an uncomfortableness that they're able to necessarily put a pin on and say, like, you know what, your background's making me uncomfortable. They're not able to just voice that opinion, but there's some uneasiness because you haven't taken the time to make sure that everything is put together well, and just kind of expect people to accept it because I'm at home. And that cannot be the case any longer. So the lighting that I have in my office is inexpensive, and I have two lights sitting here on the edge of my desk, and then behind me is something super simple. And I talk about this often. I know it looks like it might be a cool green screen background, but it's literally a gray sheet that I bought for $12 on Amazon, and I have some stage lights pointing up at it. So
Well, that rocks. That works. That works. And
in fact, I will show you. I will show you this so that you can see what we've got back here. And I'll change my little camera lens here so that you can see all of that. But that's what I've got behind me.
oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
That's a great studio you got there.
It's easy. It's not expensive. It doesn't take a lot of money to make what you have work. And in fact, the camera that I'm using that you were talking about that looks so nice and clear is actually my iPhone.
Wow.
Now I'm using a specific app because you just saw me moving kind of things around. I'm using a specific app for my iPhone that actually that utilizes all of the wonderful aspects of your 4K camera that you've already paid money for in your iPhone.
It is a very good camera. Wow. Wow. And you've got a high quality microphone?
I do. So the microphone that I use is, it's not the most expensive microphone either. I just use the next level up and a level down from what you're doing right now. And it just really depends on what you like to do with your microphone. So my microphone, I don't like to have it in my camera shot. And this is a microphone that you can still hear me pretty well without it being in view. This is the $79 version of the blue ice. I believe it's the ice. I always get them confused because there's the blue, snowball. There's a blue snowball and the blue snowball ice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the blue snowball, I believe the ice. Oh, this is the ice. Okay. The lower version is this one here.
Wow.
But this one, I can't get as far away from it. I have to be really close to it, kind of like the one that you're using right now, that Yeti. So I like this one because I can pull away from it and people can still hear me.
Yeah. So a microphone makes a huge difference. People use these headsets and they have this real shrill tone quality, and that's so distracting. So that if you put all these things together, distracting background, poor lighting, the fuzzy head with the non-background green screen, and then a low quality mic, it's just very distracting, and people are gonna be distracted from your message.
Exactly.
So I would say, do you advise people in your prep for their live event, not only to do a tech rehearsal of the event, but should they also do before that? Should they do a dry run or a practice session of their presentation?
They should. You should get onto camera. And in fact, we do some of these things with our speakers now. We prep when you give me the time and don't call me at the last minute for your event, which happens more often than I'd like to admit. But when people give me the time, we actually have a timeline that has a 4-week preparation period for your speakers. So that they can get their lives together. That's the other thing that I see falling through the cracks, that people don't think about the other people that they're asking to be involved on the stage in the event and expect them to just kind of pick up their lives. And I just told you that the event is happening tomorrow. Sure, you can be there, right? No, you have to give people time.
So when people are at charities, use volunteers, and they usually have volunteer speakers. And so we have this myth that we tell ourselves, oh, I don't want to ask them to do more because they're already donating their time, which is really, it's stupid. They want to look good. They need to look good. So we need to step up and say, we're going to have a rehearsal because this is a professional event.
Exactly.
So that's kind of how we've approached nonprofit. We use the word nonprofit, which is a bad word. It puts us into the scarcity thinking, and everybody's donating their time, so we don't need to ask anything of them. And so as I approach events, nobody wants to do a bad job. That's just the baseline. Nobody wants to do a bad job. So we're going to give everybody the opportunity to do an excellent job.
Exactly.
And part of it is rehearsing. So any inspiration you can give people or encouragement to say, yes, tell your presenters we need to have a dry run. Is there any inspiration to get people to do that?
Yes. To help them first to understand the mindset behind the speaker that you're asking to come and do these rehearsals, tech runs, or orientations, and all of those things that we require. You know, the first thing is to understand that there may be some pushback from the speaker. And because it sometimes feels like, and I'm actually saying this as a speaker who's been asked to be at tech runs. So I'm giving you the thoughts that I have, even though on the other side, I understand it. And that is that sometimes you feel like you're being attacked of your talent and your ability to be able to speak on the stage. Because why should I come and rehearse when I always do this all the time? And I get that on a very real level. And what you can do to help kind of mitigate that situation of them feeling like you are doubting their ability is to say, it's not that we don't doubt, it's not that we doubt what you can do. In fact, we're asking you to do this because we know that you're amazing, but we'd like everybody to be on the same playing field. And when we have these rehearsals, it gives everybody the opportunity to be on the same playing field. So I'll liken it to this story that I had years ago before I understood rehearsing, and was sometimes the bane of a director's existence because I was the one who was never full out at rehearsal. My thinking in my young mind at that time was, why am I wasting all this time doing this in rehearsal? Because I know I'm going to be amazing when I get on the stage. I mean, it's going to be awesome because I'm awesome. And the truth be told, I had a lot of natural ability that helped me to do things on the fly. I know everybody's not that way, but the honest to goodness truth was I was able to just pull it out right when I got to the stage. The problem was that it made me look like a showboater. Because had I done what I needed to do in rehearsal, everybody on the cast would have been able to up-level themselves. And that means that everyone is a part of the same show. When it comes to a virtual event, when you go through the tech runs and you go through the rehearsals, whether it's in person or virtually, you're giving everyone the opportunity to shine and be on the same level. When you take that away as a speaker, then you run the risk of there only being one person talked about when there should be a whole show that gets talked about.
That is such wise advice. You know, I used to bring in the best conductors in the world to work with my choir in Florida. And it wasn't a big trick because it was in the winter. And you say, would you come work with my choir in the winter in Florida? We gave them a good choir and a good place to make music. But one member said, oh, this is just rehearsal. We don't have to try her all. And she got a polite but very intense response. No, you always do your best because you're rehearsing what you're going to do on stage. And it becomes part of your DNA. You know,
Right.
It's like having a bad meeting and expecting good results. No, if you have a bad meeting, have bad results. Now, your tech shakedown is a different thing. You know, you're finding the spots that are going to be a problem before they're a problem. So people say, oh, I tried a virtual event and nobody liked it. So the virtual events must be bad, right?
Wrong. If nobody liked it, I'm so sorry. I'm just not the person to beat around the bush. It's your fault. If nobody liked it, that was your fault. Because meanwhile, back at Bandcamp, there are thousands of virtual events happening every day, and people are loving them, paying lots of money to be there and walking away with so much value. If they did not like your event, that is all on you, that you did not do your due diligence to go through the steps that needed to happen and be in place to make a virtual event something that everyone enjoys, because that is not something that's a far off cry to happen. That is very possible for people to walk away. Like I said, this event that we're doing for our client in September, we did it for them last September, and they're still talking about it and so excited that it's happening again.
Yay, yay. So we need to do it right and we need to hire a professional. So do I also need an MC that I pay and it's outside, or can I do it myself?
Okay.
Careful, careful.
So, so here's the thing. Could you have someone that is on your team to MC your event? Sure. And maybe they're a ball of light and energy and they are so much fun. But I'm going to tell you what has happened that I've seen on the events that I've come in and not been even producing. I've just actually been the MC for their event. And the change that they see happen when a professional comes in, as opposed to there's somebody on their team to come in. There's a particular organization that I've MC'd for the past, last year would have been my 8th year with them. And the reason that they kept me coming back, because they were using someone on their team up to the point that they hired me. And they keep calling me back year after year because there's a level of energy that I bring. And the fact that I've been on stage and this is something that I do, literally, this is my life's blood. It's not something that I just think about once a year. This is what I get paid to do all the time. And it's like saying, I'm going to just hire Joe down the street who sometimes dabbles in fixing plumbing. And maybe he's really good at it because he's watched a lot of YouTube videos. But he missed that one thing that somebody who has been doing it for 30 years and is certified in doing it would have seen in 2.7 seconds, which is why you pay them the money that you do.
It all adds up to results. We want the best results. We have to do the best job of producing our events. So this hour has gone by fast. And your wisdom far exceeds your youth, your linear age. It's just amazing, all the great wealth of information, a lot of sound bites, a lot of really strong wisdom. So you can find all about Ella and her company at Beyond Virtual Events, just like it sounds, beyondvirtualevents.com. And I bet if you put Ella in front of that, Ella at, you could get a message to Ella at beyondevents.com. And you'll be glad that you went there because, as you see, she's the consummate professional that knows this art and craft and science of putting on events that actually get the results that you want. And guess what? You've got a vision and you got a product that you offer to people to change lives. Let somebody else help you run the thing so you don't have to be doing it all. And maybe they could do it a great lot better than you could. Ella, thank you for today. What's a closing idea or thought or challenge you want to leave people with?
So the challenge that I'll leave you with, I always like to say, instead of challenge, because that feels so strained, I will encourage you to go out. And if you're using Zoom, I encourage you to go get into your Zoom dashboard and learn it. Learn it. Zoom is a wealth of tools for you if you will take the time to learn what's underneath the hood. So go do it. I encourage you to just choose one thing. Go learn one thing and implement that at your next meeting.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much for being our guest today on the Nonprofit Exchange.
Thank you for having me.